Hello, my name is Anne Nivat. I'm an independent war reporter. And I'm here with you to share with you my own experience of fear. The ultimate fear. Fear of death. Fear of going through the last moments of your life. That I've been going through as a war reporter. So as a war reporter, I had to cohabit with fear. I had to accept it. And I had to transform it into something. How did it work? How did I work in the field? My first war was before 9/11. Can you imagine? It was in a very remote place called Chechnya. It's a region of Russia in 1999. I went there as a young reporter. I was not yet a war reporter. And I went there without knowing what I would find out. What was war? I had no idea about what was war, and I had no idea about the kind of fear I would have to go through. I walk always alone. At that time, there were no social media, and I'm a written press reporter. So I was going there with a pen, not even a computer, because during a war, as you can imagine, the first thing that is missing is electricity. So you can have the best computer, you will not use it. So you take notes. The only thing I had, the only technical thing I had was a satellite phone. Of course, that was very important. I was dictating my stories to my newspaper. So I was alone in the field, always. I was never embedded. Embedded was not really at that time something that was the norm, because it was before September 11th. In Chechnya, the war was between a bunch of rebels, boyeviki. In Russian, they were called boyeviki. Some people would say terrorists, fighters, against the Russian army, the regular Russian army. So it's David versus Goliath. My attitude was to blend in. And that was the key. By blending into the population, I was sharing with this population, the population that was going through the war, everything like them, including fear. By experiencing fear, my fear, I was experiencing their fear. And as a result, I could convey it back to my readers. I could describe it. I could make it real. So the problem with fear is that usually when you feel it, it's too late. You cannot plan that you will get scared. You cannot plan to become overwhelmed by fear. When I started coming back from battlefields and I was being asked questions by journalists, always the question, and it's still the case, they were asking me, okay, were you scared? Have you been scared? So why were you going back? Of course I was scared. Who would not be? But of course I was going back because that's my job. And by going back, you never know when again you will have to live through your fear. So the real fear I could feel was during my first bombardment in Chechnya. And of course, when I felt it, it was too late. I was stuck. I couldn't move out. I was in a place from where I couldn't get out. What was this place? It was a village, a remote village in Chechnya in the fall of 1999, a village called Bamut. And I had just arrived, going through, by walking through the Russian military positions. And I just arrived and I felt very good because I had succeeded in going through the positions, and I had just arrived in this abandoned sort of farm where a group of Bayeviki was hiding. And all of a sudden, we got under a bombardment, heavy shelling from the air. And there is nothing worse than an aerial bombardment when you're under it. The other problem with fear is that most of the time it's in hiding. You don't really realize it's fear until it's overwhelming you. So you have to identify it. And it's an effort. Under this bombardment, I had to identify my fear. And my fear was, before being a fear, it was an excitement. Fear can be an excitement. Think about it. The excitement I had during this first bombardment was to realize what I was going through. Here I was, alone, in this village, with these rebels, watching them, watching their excitement, watching them trying to touch with their shoulder missile the helicopters that had become all over the sky. All of a sudden, the sky became black with helicopters. The second before, the sky was blue. It was a very brilliant day in the fall with, I remember the birds. I remember the nature. Chechnya is a very wild and beautiful country. I remember all that. And all of a sudden, everything changes. And the helicopters fly so low that you can almost see the pilot. You can almost see his face before he presses the button for the bomb and then flies away. And here I was, under the bombs, with the rebels, excited with their missiles, trying to touch them, playing with the shrapnels, playing like soccer with the shrapnels. And me in the basement, stuck in the basement, chain smoking, pacing, trying to answer this question, what am I doing here? Is it for real? Yes, it's for real. Fear makes you realize, forces you to admit reality. And in my case, at that moment, reality was a nasty war. It was that war is no video game. War sucks. War can kill you. And I was in the middle of it. At another moment, I was in Grozny's outskirts, in the outskirts of Grozny, the capital of Chechnya. I was trying to enter the capital, and it was impossible because there was heavy battle inside the capital, and there had been for months. And before entering it by foot, I was under another bombardment. I had just arrived in this village, and I had chosen a house where I could sleep. You know, that's what you had to do at war. There are no hotels for war correspondents. Nothing is working like normal. So you just stop where you are and ask for hospitality. And I will always remember this young woman. She was living in that house. And I shared with her during that night and the entire day after a very heavy bombardment. And all of a sudden, she asked me and the two other people who were in that room at that time in her house, she asked us if we wanted to drink tea. You know, as if it was the moment to drink tea. And I said to myself, what is she talking about tea? But first of all, I hate tea. And secondly, we're not like in the UK at 5 p.m. And then I realized she was right asking this question. And she was right preparing us tea with water coming from the snow. And, well, we had nothing to really drink tea. But she was right. Why was she right? Because that was her way to overcome fear. That was, by drinking tea, we were hiding our fear and at the same time acknowledging it. We were realizing the moment and making something of it, something that could help us survive it. So, what I wanted to tell you is that if I would have never achieved what I did achieve in my life, especially at those moments of my life, without fear, without having admitted fear and transformed it into something and experienced it. That's because I experienced fear the way I did that I could write about something in my stories, write about war, and convey it to my readers. So, fear is not only something negative. It gives you, in a way, wisdom, or it obliges you to take action. Wisdom is when the two moments I told you, no panic. What can you do? You're stuck in a bombardment. You drink tea. Or you just wait for it to stop. When I was in Bamut, you can ask yourself tons of questions. You can pray. But if you panic, you're dead in that case, in that very moment. Or you take action. It makes you realize what it can bring you. War is a very special moment. War and fear during war, fear, which is the quintessence of war, leads to different relationship in between people. There are no longer normal human relationship, no sophistication. Everything comes back to the basics. And it leads to something that has almost disappeared in rich, modern countries of the West, which is brotherhood, fraternity. And that's something that I would have never experienced without fear, without the fear I told you about. Fear is a signal. Fear wakes you up. It's not only, and to me, no longer an unpleasant feeling. Scary situations, to me, are the norm of my job. Scary situations are my stories. Scary people, bad people, Al-Qaeda people, Daesh people, terrorists, people you can encounter at war, have my story. So I have to overcome my fear, to share something with it, to share the moment, even having realized it is fear, in order to get my story. I have to adapt to them and to the scary moment that they represent, and not the other way around. So, fear is a reminder, is a simple reminder of our human conditions. Nothing more. You have to grasp it, accept it, make fear your ally, your friend. And then it becomes a force that gives you meaning. Thank you very much for your attention.